Okay, so just so I didn't miss you, no Hope yet, right? No Alexis B yet? No Dario yet? Lucas Lowe? Angie? And Diana? Right? Not yet? No, there's Diana. All right. Happy Monday to you. Hope you are doing well. Luckily, you all remembered. It was my seniors who didn't remember and showed up this morning at 8:40 for class when we didn't have it. But go ahead and click onto modules and move down to module 5, and I'll give you an overview of the week and what we'll do. We'll get half it done today and half done when we see each other again on Thursday, and then you'll have a 4-day weekend. Okay, so what we're going to take a look at this week is totalitarian states. We basically have set up Russia under control of Lenin. Lenin dies pretty quickly, Stalin takes over and is extremely ruthless in what he does and how he controls the country. We'll also take a look at China and how it goes from imperial China under dynasties to communist China in 1949. There's a little break in the Civil War when both sides, the nationalists and the communists, joined forces to defeat the Japanese, right? The only person that you hate more is the person on the outside, right? So, as I said, what we'll take a look at is Stalin and Mao. And I want to play you a little story on Mao. This is like 3 minutes, but you'll get a kick out of this. This sort of explains what Mao, or not Mao, excuse me, Stalin is about.
The rest of the story.
Make sure you can hear this.
Joe was sound asleep when a sudden crash in the dead of the night jolted the little boy from his dreams. The noise had come from outside the house, very near the front door. Joe's mother had heard it too, and both clung to each other, trembling as the thrashing, thudding sounds continued. Moments later, the intruder was in the house. The sour stench of alcohol hung about him like a fog. He reached for little Joe's mother and struck her with his fist. The boy screamed no. The man wheeled around and grabbed the youngster, began beating him savagely, as though all of the rage in the world had been focused on one small child. Joey's mother tried to stop the man, only to be slammed aside. And he kept on beating the boy unmercifully until at last, submerged in his own booze, the man himself passed out, just as it had happened so many times before. The intruder was no stranger. Was in fact Joe's own father. His mother was a modest, deeply religious person who worked as a cook, a seamstress, and a washerwoman. Hers was virtually the family's only income. Whatever Joe's dad earned at the factory, he drank, and whatever he drank turned to violence. And so was Joe's childhood an endless nightmare. He was not really strong enough to take the repeated brutal beatings. A youthful case of smallpox had left him scarred and weak. He had also been seriously injured in a carriage accident, nearly died from resultant blood poisoning. And still his father continued to batter him and his helpless mother. Until one night. And that brings us to the rest of the story. Little Joe's father came home drunk as usual. He was reeling in a half-blind stupor as usual. when he seized Catherine Joe's mother and began hitting her hard in the face. In vain, the boy thumped his father with his own tiny fist, hoping somehow to make him stop, to stand between his mother and the awful pain. But failing in this, in fear and frustration, Joe ran to the cutting board, and took from the kitchen cutting board a huge knife, and he threw it at his mother's assailant. With surprising force, that knife embedded itself in a wooden cupboard, but only inches from his father's head. Well, that unexpected attack threw the drunken man into a screaming fury, and the boy fled with cries of, "I will kill you, I will kill you," ringing in his ears. Little Joe sought refuge at a neighbor's house. And gratefully, it seems, the boy's father didn't even recall the incident once he had sobered up. One terrifying occasion, it marked the point at which Joe began fighting back. Even after his father drank himself to death, Joe kept fighting, mercilessly and utterly without conscience, even as his father had before him. Oh, it's an old story, of course, how the abused become the abuser. But regarding this one case history, don't let it be forgot how hatred begat hatred, and how a battering father begat a boy who lost faith in everything except brutality and revolution, just a scared, scarred child whom you remember as Joseph Stalin. Only now you know it.
Crazy, right? Absolutely crazy. So now you can kind of get an idea, right, about why he was so ruthless in terms of things that he did. Now, after he takes control for Lenin, so Lenin dies, and basically Stalin just moves himself right in. There is no vote, there is no power struggle, nothing. Stalin just moves in because he has the support of the army. And so what he creates is a totalitarian state. And in a totalitarian state, total control, as you can guess by the name, is with the ruler or the dictator. And so totalitarian state in Russia is going to be the same thing that you see in totalitarian states today, right? It's going to be a police state. There's going to be secret police who are always looking for people that are trying to agitate or subvert the government. They completely monitored all telephone lines and eavesdropped on people. We know that from the last unit, when we talk about Stalin and the Great Purge, between 1934 and 1938, right before the start of World War II, there are between 8 million and 13 million deaths that Stalin is responsible for. And you can't get an accurate count because sometimes they just took people and then they never came back. So nobody really knows in terms of what happens. In a totalitarian state, you're going to see propaganda and censorship. Nothing gets in the newspaper, nothing gets to the movie theaters, which start to become popular in the 1920s at that time. And then you also have radio that is very popular in the early 30s. Nothing gets on any of those communication mediums without the government deciding or controlling what that may be. Now, in terms of education, most of the education was about indoctrinating how good the government was, all the good things that the government can do for you from the earliest of ages all the way through universities. That it was your job as a citizen to sacrifice and work hard for the good of the entire state. Remember, because under this new system of the Bolsheviks, which is later termed communism, and this idea of Marx, we are all going to work together and then we're going to split everything equally. In a totalitarian state, you're not allowed to have religious ideas. So the teachings of communism basically become the religion. The Russian Orthodox Church and any other church was eliminated in the country of Russia. And then, as we've said, because of what Karl Marx had wrote in the late 1800s in terms of Das Kapital, the economy of the country is going to be run by the government. And that's called a command economy. You'll learn about that your senior year. So in a command economy, the government makes all of the decisions, and some of them will be deadly. So there's an industrial revolution in which Russia, under Stalin, is going to try to catch up to the likes of Britain, Belgium, Germany, and the United States. He also has an agricultural revolution in which basically the government of Russia is going to go into the countryside and take control of all of the private farms. And it's called collectivization. And in this collectivization process, you're going to have private farms, people who have been farming their land for generations, lose their farms. Well, when you combine the fact that they were the ones that know how to grow the wheat with the fact that there is now going to be a drought, you're going to see between 5 to 10 million deaths due to starvation because of that decision by Stalin and the Communist Party to do that. Now, when you look at some daily life, one of the positives about this totalitarian state and this idea of communism is that everybody has an equal role, everybody has an equal place in society. So if you were to look at the United Kingdom, you look at the United States, you look at other parts of Europe, women's rights expand in Russia much faster than they do everywhere else in the world. They have access to better education, they have access to better technical skills, and in fact, when you look at the amount of female physicians in Russia, there were more female doctors at one point in the 30s and 40s than there were male doctors. Everybody had an equal opportunity to get as far as they want. But by the 1930s, right, 35, 36, make no mistake about it, Joseph Stalin is a totalitarian leader, and he is absolutely in control of everything that goes on in Russia. Go ahead and get to this page that says Presentation Portrait of Stalin on your canvas. All right, so two things left really to go over with you. This is a short clip on Stalin and his rise to power. The next page after this, is going to be a formative assignment on that video, all right, on that video. So before we go over that, a couple of things. Remember that at 3:15 today, your unit test over the Russian Revolution will start showing up on Aries, all right? Start showing up on Aries. So there have only been 12 of you from 4th and 6th period that have finished that unit test. So you want to make sure that you do that. Your review game, as I said, have a number of questions similar to what you'll see on the test. So if you click on that review game link, right, I would go through this a couple more times, but at 3:15, all right, at 3:15, those will start showing up. So you want to make sure that you go over that. Get out of that, it makes too much noise. Then, as I said, lastly, before we look at Mao and his totalitarian leadership in China and their transformation from one that was ruled by a dynasty similar to Russia to its journey to communism, is what we'll take a look at on Thursday. So with your remaining time, it'll be easier for you to do this, but with your remaining time in this class, you'll want to watch this video on Stalin, this portion here. And then, as I said, there are 15 questions that follow the life of Stalin and what he does in terms of turning Russia into a totalitarian state. So you can fill these answers in as you watch the video. So if you need to, you can do the review game as many times as you want. The test will start showing up at 3:15 today in Aries. You want to watch the Portrait of Stalin video with the remaining time in class. And then, as I said, take the review questions quiz over that portion of the video. And tomorrow we'll look at China and how it switches from an imperial, basically dynasty country to one that is also communism under Mao. And Mao will be your second totalitarian leader. All right, if you have any questions or concerns, let me know. Otherwise, we will see you Thursday.